Hello and welcome to Hoopscene.com's March to Macon show. I'm Mike Eddy. I'm joined by our panel of experts here, Justin Young, Robert Alfonso, and Eric Ellerton. We're breaking down Class A boys, public and private. Now, this is the first year in Single A they've done something interesting. They're actually created power rankings and seeded the teams based on the power rankings. And at the first glance, after the first round of the playoffs, seems like it's working pretty well. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, only two teams that were lower seeds won out. So when they ranked it 1 through 16, they did a better job than I think the NCAA selection committee did of doing the rankings from 1 through 16 to seed it all out. So it's an interesting concept to take away from how you seed yourself through the region tournament, which I think raises the level of competition a little bit. Right. But at the same time, you win those games in the region tournament, you bump up in the power rankings. So I know a lot of states, when I lived in Oregon for the last couple of years, they used the power ranking system. And I thought it set up a really good state tournament bracket. And we talked a lot about maybe some parity a little bit in the higher classifications. It kind of got me thinking about, does this power ranking system now work really well for the other classifications moving forward? Or do we take away from the region tournament to seed into it? Because you win your region tournament this year in the higher classifications, you lock yourself in the home court advantage. So there was some incentive there this year.
Definitely. Well, the one thing that, in talking to a few coaches in the 1A is the top 4 teams were region champions.
Right.
And then everything else is based on the schedule. And just talking to a few coaches, around the state or in the area who were familiar with the power ranking, the one thing they talked about is scheduling is important.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like, the 3-letter word of the BCS, where, you have to schedule and strength of schedule.
Right.
It's something that each team's going to have to look into. Like one ball club said they wanted to play in an elite showcase event, but if they were playing an out-of-state team, it wasn't going to work for them.
Yeah.
Because they get no points for that team's season.
Well, you look at North Cobb Christian beating North Cobb. They've never played each other, those two schools, until this year.
Right. And
they won that game. Mm-hmm. So now if they don't win that game, are they now a number 5 seed in the private bracket? I think about teams like maybe St. Francis looking ahead to next year. Are we going to see them playing a team like Norcross to help improve their power ranking system? On the flip side, a team like Wilkinson County, a team that's never been afraid to play anybody, playing now some higher level teams. So I love that concept.
Well, and that's the reason why Lakeview was able to get in.
Right.
Because Lakeview managed to beat North Hall, which is one of the losses. And North Hall is in the Elite 8 program right now. Yeah. And they rattled off and did well during their regular season. And that helped them because, Lakeview and Seth Vining, who is retiring, who's one of the greater coaches to ever coach in the state of Georgia, he was on the bubble because he even said when they lost to Hebron in the first round of their tournament, he had an eerie feeling like his ball club was not going to make it. Mm-hmm. And then ironically what he was concerned about was based on schedule. And sure enough, because they were able to pick up wins against North Hall, they were able to secure a spot into the tournament.
Right. Well, let's move on and let's look at actually the matchups. And we've played the first round of the Single A game. So talk about some of the matchups you guys are looking at. What interests you? What are some of the favorites as this thing plays out on the March to Macon?
Well, the one thing that that stood out to me, looking into the private schools, is definitely the way Green Forest and St. Francis happen to be playing right now. The top 2 ranked teams, seeded teams, in the bracket. They're not only playing well, they are playing with some consistency. They have the longest winning streak, both of them in the state simultaneously at 11 games, or 10 or 11 games apiece. So now you're talking about 2 programs that could potentially be in a collision course to meet each other.
Right.
But then you have had an opportunity, and please forgive me, North Cobb Christian folks, for Julian Terrell. I didn't realize he was there, because so much was discussed throughout the year about everyone else, but this kid has great hands. He has the philosophy of an old school throwback basketball player. I'm going to play with my back to the basket. And he nearly chewed my head off when I asked him if he was going to play football somewhere. That's what he looked like. Yeah, but he literally looked at me and said, "Football?"
Yeah, the kid looks like a tight end out there.
Right.
I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6", big bodied kid, but got phenomenal hands. Will catch anything that's around him. You know, he looks like Tony Gonzalez out there playing basketball.
Right.
You know, and that's a matchup coming forward that I'm looking forward to, is seeing how the North Cobb Christian guys match up with Athens Christian. You know, and Will Jackson and what they're doing out there at Athens. You know, they've had an impressive season for having a sophomore leading the way.
Well, when you look at the single A for both private and public, we have major star power guys in these brackets. Right. You know, you look at St. Francis, who I think their two best players, their two best prospects, Kaiser Gates, a sophomore, and Kobe Simmons, who's a freshman. Both, I think, could make a strong argument for at least their top position in their respective grade. You look at Aquinas, you've got Ahmed Hill, who's having probably the best overall individual season of any player in the whole state of Georgia this year, who could be the best junior in the whole state of Georgia.
Right.
On the public side, you've got Seminole County.
Right.
You've got a team that's paced by freshmen and sophomores. Jordan Harris, who's playing for Seminole County, may be the best freshman in the whole state of Georgia. So when you look at this bracket overall for both sides, guys, we've got major star power, and then I didn't even talk about Will Jackson, who could be the top top guy in his class, the top sophomore in his class. In the state of Georgia, playing for Athens Christian. So we've got major star power in this. That's what makes this really so intriguing, because I think the matchups set up very, very well for really good individual matchups too. And I think that's really the strength of what we're seeing with this power ranking system.
Right. So, any favorites to win it? Any picks? Anyone want to take a shot?
Well, I'm still my Final Four. You know, and I'm gonna start with the private schools, having been a little bit familiar with them. Definitely going Green Forest.
Okay.
You know, I'll take my pick and roll the dice, and after seeing them, and I think Julian Terrell will make the difference, is with North Cobb Christian.
Okay.
You know, the way I've watched St. Francis throughout the year, I like what they're doing right now, and it looks like they're coming together, so there's another pick right there, and I'm going to take Aquinas. Having watched them earlier this year, I'm going to take Aquinas, and it's going to be Green Forest and St. Francis in the finals, with Green Forest winning.
Okay, there you have it.
Yeah.
Let's take a stab at the single A. Part of Georgia basketball that I love the most is South Georgia basketball.
Right.
Because you're going to get kids that are really under the radar. You get really good athletic teams. You get guys that are going to turn into be really good college prospects. I think what we have is a really good group of young guys in the state public school in Class A. I'm going to take Seminole County. They've been the #1 team. I think you have to go with the favorites. But you can never, ever, to steal a quote from my daughters in their Taylor Swift song, ever, 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 never, ever. I don't even know how it goes. Is that how it goes? You guys probably know. But I'm going to steal a line from Wilkinson County. You can't count them out with Dr. Jeter and his club. I think that's a team that's going to be making a lot of noise. Love to see that match up with Seminole County in the Final Four. On the flip side, let's take Portal playing Turner County and just take the higher seeds. Let's go Chalk.
Yeah.
Let's go Chalk. Right. I think you have to go Chalk.
Turner County's on a 9-game winning streak.
And just so you know, Eric Elton, huge Taylor Swift fan. Huge.
I saw the twinkle in the eye. Eric,
so that wraps our single A public and private show. Private classification.
You're for Clump by Taylor Swift.
I keep thinking of Taylor's lyrics.
It's all good.
But that wraps our show on the March to Macon. Please follow us on Twitter at Hoopscene and join the conversation at #HoopScene.